Stop it right now. You're not going to believe who's
It's
on the
'cause
podcast today. I don't even know, like, yeah, I don't even have to introduce her because you know her. Almost 1 million followers on Instagram now,
stop.
probably more on TikTok. I mean, you have taken your incredible personality and just made the rest of the world fall in love with you, all while going through a divorce with little kids, all while trying to hold it together as a boss babe. We've got Nicki Marie on of Nicki Marie Inc. Nicki Mare, if we're going to be formal. Mar. I don't know. How do the
Mar.
Bostonians say it? Mar.
Yeah, Mar, but
Mar.
nobody gets it right.
Bill Maher, Nicki
Yeah.
Maher. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Like that. No relation. Anyway, I'm so happy you're here. I'm so excited to chat with you, and I know our listeners will be as well.
Yes. Michelle, I mean, we've been digital BFFs for a while now.
hmm
And
We were
fortunately,
we were very close to an in-person Nantucket trip. We'll do that one day.
one day when the kids are like off cool teenagers wise, and I'm going to be like finding my life again.
Okay. Well,
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the
maybe we can
ticket.
find your life today. Maybe that's what this podcast is for. So, okay. So you burst on the scene on social media a couple years back. We connected.
Yeah.
And you have just become a favorite for your authenticity. Can we start there? Like what?
We can start there. Yeah. I'm looking at you and I feel so much because it's wild. The last time we spoke, I was, not to say a completely different person, but you know, the divorce journey. I was cortisol levels skyrocket, just bursting out of me, nervous energy, like just the unknown. I was in the unknown.
Well, and so maybe you are a different person now because that particular part of the divorce journey is going to bring stuff out of everybody. Like you're like, who even am I? How am I functioning?
Survival
Why am I
mode, baby.
functioning like this? What is happening?
Yeah.
And okay, so we're past that stage. That's good
Yep.
to know.
Well, looking back at it, it's funny because when you are going through divorce, you literally feel like you are the only person in the world experiencing what you're experiencing.
Yep.
That's the best way I could say it. Because I
And
look back, yep.
your problems feel like the biggest problems in the world at that moment in time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I do look back at some of my posts. I'm like, oh wow, the divorce was like many times my entire personality because authentically, like you said, that is the truth that I was living. I was living in the divorce. It was literally outside of being a mother and being completely focused on my two kids. It was everything. I
Yeah.
can't think of anything else that I was focused on.
Yeah. And especially when, and I hope I have the right to say this, when you are in a more contentious battle behind the scenes and that constant unknown of like, what is coming next? What are they going to do next? What are the lawyers going to want next? All you can do is really just like put your like blinders on and focus on the minute by minute of your day while your anxiety is coming out of your
Anxiety
eyeballs.
galore, anxiety galore. And listen, it's fun. I'll make a joke of it, which I was like, what I do best. But I came finally out of the divorce. So January, 1 year ago, was my final divorce date. 1 year ago.
And how long was your
January.
whole process?
Like 5 years.
Jesus Louise.
5 years.
My God.
And no one can, I mean, I think now this is why you have the audience that you have. This is why you've done successful things with the book, is because once you are a divorced woman, that is a part of your life. That is a huge chapter.
Mm-hmm.
It is the divorce era. It is the unhinged era of you. And it leads to beautiful things, which is what I'm excited to talk about today, is just coming out of that.
Yeah. And I think, you know, in meeting you, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, you were still very much in your process and there were still a lot of unknowns and you were still scared, but you were still showing up in a way that just brought a smile to people's faces. So I guess the obvious answer to the question I'm about to ask is yes. Is humor your coping mechanism?
It is. It always has been. It always has been. It's more, I don't like awkwardness. I don't like awkward rooms. I don't like when other people feel funny. So I've just always inserted myself into those moments. And I think that's a part of intelligence that no one pays attention to. I was not book smart, but I could tell you what everyone in the room was doing, what everyone in the room was feeling. And then you take a super sensitive person like me that can feel everything, and you put me in a divorce battle, out of body.
Tell us about
Out
that.
of body.
Because you are empathetic and sensitive and you care about the needs of others, but now you're divorcing somebody who very clearly was not caring for yours. How did you show up in those moments? Like, where did the empathy go?
It changed my entire view of the world, which at times I'm like, oh man, it was so fun to be looking through rose-colored glasses for so long. I was so naive to like people, to human beings. And then you add in a divorce and you add in being online where strangers are literally majority of love my audience. But when people come in from the outside world and decide to judge a stranger or comment on a stranger or create an entire storyline based on a 30-second video, it starts to get to you.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the divorce gets you. So I have become, between those two things and probably in my perimenopause era, I've become just a bitch. I'm a
And
bitch.
so
I'm a bitch. I'm a tease. I'm a goddess on my
I'm a
knees.
queen. Yeah.
Never related more to Meredith
Okay,
Brooks
but
song.
can I just say something? You went from oversensitive to like me too, people pleaser, oversensitive, reading the room, wanting to be the one fixing everything in front of me, to having some sort of like boundary for yourself. Does that make you a bitch, or does that make you a smart, self-aware woman taking control of her own life?
I think it's both. I think bitchy, when I think of bitchiness in me, it's just like I'm intolerant for stuff that doesn't suit me anymore. And I'm not talking about my ex. I'm talking about everything.
Shit, girl, I'm in the same place to the point where I asked my therapist, I'm like, do I have
Am
like
I the problem?
do I have an antisocial personality? Is there something wrong with me? And he was
Right.
like, hello, you are finally practicing self-compassion. Like
Oh,
he
yeah.
calls it radical self-compassion, which is a
Yeah.
great book, separate and apart from this conversation. But finally knowing for yourself that it's not your job to fix everybody in the room or make everybody laugh or feel bad for everybody's problems. If you don't take care of yourself first, and now time's running out, babe.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the clock.
Oh, we're on the clock. I think it's that too. You know, I got a dog. I was like, this is officially my midlife crisis. Like, never wanted a dog. Looked at people who got dogs as like something's wrong with you, because like,
No.
how do you have that patience and have kids and all that? I got a dog. I got a fucking dog,
I'm
rescue
so
dog.
happy for
Really.
you because my dog is my son and he loves me more than anybody in this house. Seriously.
I mean, I have to like, I'm doing the morning routine of she sees me get up and it's like immediate wants to bite. She wants to bite my face off in the most playful way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, girl, we're going to just,
Oh, you
we're
didn't
going
just
to
get a
zen.
dog, you got a puppy.
6 months.
Oh, you'll never do that again in your whole life.
But
Like,
she's no, this is it. This is the one and done midlife crisis. One dog. I'm going to love the shit out of her. And then we're going to be on our Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard weekend era
with our
when the
senior
kids are older.
dogs. Yes.
But part of this also, Michelle, was I think subconsciously, this was the moment of, okay, we're out of the divorce era and we're now into the kids are 8 and 10. I don't carry my daughter across the room like I used to. She doesn't say, Mom, pick me up. Last time she did was a few days after we got the dog. And I was like, oh, she's feeling like she sees me babying the
Oh,
dog.
yeah. It's like having a third baby for
Right. So
sure.
I picked her up and I was like, holy crap, I haven't done this in a long time. So there's like this grounding. There's this
Yeah.
grounding feeling of like, we're in the winter months. We're entering a new chapter. There's something about fourth and second grade for them that's like a little bit more, they're a little bit more empowered. They're a little bit more independent.
Fourth grade is hard as fuck. I
And
can't do the
then
math.
comes the dog because I'm like trying to hold on to like the home.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. But you know what? I just have to put this out there. You bringing a dog into the mix is what a lot of people do with a new partner, thinking that their kids need like a family dynamic. No, I'm serious.
Yeah. I'm
Oh
going to
my
put it in
God,
there.
my family's broken. I need to just bring anyone who's willing to come in here into the
Yeah.
mix so that my kids have a sense of family, when that's the last thing they're looking for. And I think if we're going to look at this from like an objective level, bringing a dog into a home creates more love. It creates more connection. It creates more opportunity for togetherness. And what a great gift that you gave them. I don't think it's a midlife crisis. I'm like a dog person through and
Right.
through. And I think they're just nothing but extra love for the home.
Yes. And you said self-compassion. I think it's hard for me to consider being with a man when I am in such focus on myself. It's just
Well,
I'm
this is the healed
47. I've
Nikki.
been focused on men all the way back to third grade boys.
Yep.
I was a
Hoe bag like
boy
me.
crazy. I was
Yeah.
boy crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boy crazy.
Me too.
And now I'm like, oh, maybe it's some of the estrogen depleting, whatever it is, feels very empowering where I'm like, I don't want to be like, I don't need a man, but more like I am finding myself in a way that I've never given myself permission.
Right. Listen, a great relationship is great. And I'm very
Yeah.
lucky to have one. But being with yourself and appreciating that, some people never get that opportunity. And that's where you find the spaces where you need to give yourself self compassion and what makes Nikki Nikki in this version of her life and how much of herself she's given away to keeping other people happy. Like you have to have those moments. My alone time after my split, I was the girl who couldn't be alone for a second.
Oh,
Also since the third grade. Like my mom used to say I couldn't, I had to make a plan, run, do, go. I had so much trauma that I didn't want to sit with. So I just jumped from one unhealthy thing to the next. And when I got separated and Bella was 2 and in diapers and throwing shit everywhere, I'm like, I got to just like, I don't have time to mess this up and bring another toxic person into the mix and lose myself again. Like that was some of the most impactful, beautiful time. I wrote about it in my book. That little teeny tiny townhouse we had that I could barely afford were the best days of my life.
I'm going to look at this house someday as that I could get choked up because it is. That's what my house is to me is like, it's not the house. You know, I think we all had the perspective seeing the California fires and everything.
Mhm.
And when I sat with the thought of these people that lost their belongings, it's not the belongings, it's like the memories,
The feeling.
the feeling of bringing your first child home from the hospital to that house, the nursery, like, ugh,
Yeah.
that's the stuff I'm a super gush about is
Yeah.
like the nostalgia that I have from being a mother. It's like crazy.
It's crazy. And the
Yeah.
older they get, my stepdaughter just turned 18. Bella just turned 10. My stepdaughter's off to college up in your area in a few months. And it's just like, look,
Mm.
we just had her bat mitzvah in my mind a year ago. And now here we are. And it's like the passage of time it is so scary and it's so cliche, but like the older you get, the faster it goes and you want to soak in all those moments. But I want to go back to when you were in the height of your divorce chaos. What because you've always been so intent on protecting your children. Can you like take us through a little walk of what that was like for you when you were
Thousand
trying to protect them and trying to protect yourself?
1000%. I'm just going to say it how I feel it because that's the only right answer is protecting them does not mean you're crying in another room and pretending to your kids that everything's fine,
Hmm.
right? It
Mm-hmm.
means you are finding strength in ways you never knew you had, and you're keeping them in their routine,
Yeah.
in their structure.
Yep.
You're letting them know, even my kids. I mean, when we started the separation, I want to say I'm lucky because I really can't imagine going through it now at these ages, only because I never had to, right? You find the things you say, I could never imagine going through this. When you're in it, you find the strength.
Yeah, of course.
So my kids were, I want to say 3 and 5. And I remember just being so, I guess it's kind of like the law of attraction. If I had to put a title on it, it's having a vision of like what you want your home to feel like for your kids.
That is so poignant because something I always ask my clients, regardless, my ex is a narcissist, my ex is this, my ex
Yeah.
is doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But
Yep.
what do you want your child, what do you want their story to be when they're in college, meeting friends, or going on their first date with the person they're going to be with for the rest of their lives? And they say to you, what was your childhood like? What story are they telling in that moment? Because now they get 2 stories. They get the story with dad and the story with mom.
Yeah.
And you can only control the story with mom. So what story is that going to be? And I think the way you handled it from what I've seen is the routine, the consistency, their commitment to extracurricular activities, you being super involved with that. That's what you can control.
Yeah.
And that for them, no child wants to say, oh, My mom was so upset about the divorce that she couldn't drive us to practice anymore,
Right.
or right.
Right.
So you holding it together for those moments
Yeah.
mean everything in the long run.
Oh yeah. I remember sitting, I mean, I didn't cry in front of my kids, but I remember letting them know after a game or something, hey, soccer, let's just say that dad was there with his girlfriend at the time and the game ended. And I've said this, whether it be on your podcast or somewhere else, and it really resonated with a lot of people if they came from divorce or they were going through
Mhm.
it. I always said to my kids before the game or after the game, like, if go see dad. So put yourself, let me rewind a little bit. Put yourself as the kid and having your parents sit on two sides of the field
The worst.
and the game ends and they have to the first thing they want to do is run into your arms after the game or say, did you see me score the goal? Or did you see me? And I was like, put myself in their body. So rather than me be like, oh gosh, they're going up to their dad first, or oh gosh, they're coming up to me first and I feel bad for him, I just set the record straight before I could even feel those things. And I said, well, hey, when the game ends, if dad's there with so and so, like, don't go up and hug whoever you want, mom and dad, doesn't matter
Yeah.
which order.
But this is what kids really need. And first of all, yay for the child first mindset, but
Yeah.
also I talked about this a lot in my community last week, that permission, right? So like, even if you don't tell them, I
Yeah.
hate your dad and your dad wanted the divorce and they did this, they know there's bad blood on some level that has put you in two separate homes. And they're looking for the permission and the support
Absolutely.
to call daddy, tell him about your grades, or of course, go hug daddy. Daddy's over there, over there. Did you see him? And I used to also do that when my ex started bringing his girlfriend to stuff. Bella, give Lindsay a hug. She came to say hi. You know what I mean? So like that permission again is an
Yes.
indication of we've
Yes.
got our adult stuff, but like we're here for you. We love you. We're still connected for you.
Absolutely. My daughter was gonna potentially run into um his ex the other day. And I just said, hey, if you see so and so, nothing's wrong. You could be yourself because, she loved her.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like getting ahead of what might emotionally confuse the child.
Right.
And there will be plenty of people who say, they should know who their father is or what this person's
It's
like.
the
That's not my style
That's the
personally. I'm
biggest
not judging.
battle I fight on in my, I mean, it's the whole purpose behind my work is to move
Yeah.
people away from that perspective because, I always say it, divorce is an adult decision, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a child's lived experience. And that whole, oh, they don't deserve to be here because it's my weekend is you basically saying my child doesn't deserve the opportunity to have both of their parents cheer them on at a game. And when you
Uh-huh.
look at it through that lens,
Yeah.
and yes, I have tons of parents who will be like, well, I want to put in the parenting plan that they can't come to sporting events or extracurriculars on my day. And I'm like, okay, so I want you to sit your child down and say, I'm not letting daddy come to see you on these days because you're with me. And then the parent is like, I can't say that to them. I'm like, well, that's what you're saying to them. And I was like, I was the kid who
Oh,
would go out on with her dance team and go compete in all these places and fucking freeze on stage looking to see if my dad was there. By the way, he never came. And you don't want that for your kid. That shouldn't be their concern. And that is the concern of co-parented kids. Are both my parents going to be there for me?
absolutely. And you could have this whole empowered single mom thing, and co-parenting is a huge word, right? There's just so many words that make us feel so like forced to be a certain way.
Right.
To me, my definition of co-parenting is completely different from the other persons that I'll talk to. And then there's the formula. What is your child? I have so many people ask me, what is your kid's like custody schedule? And I'm like, I'm never going to publicly say what that is. That's no one's business but
Mm-hmm.
mine.
Mm-hmm.
And don't take advice from people that aren't living in your shoes.
Can we put like a billboard up with that because the amount of misinformation right now on social media and the advice, you should never be giving somebody advice on how to live their life, especially when it's going to affect their children. But you got all these people hungry for likes. 5 signs your ex is a narcissist. 5 reasons why you shouldn't have your child call their dad on your time. I mean, I see this stuff and I'm like, I have to block all these people. And then there's the ones
Do it
who
your
want to
way. Do it your way. Do it your way. No one else's way will work.
do it the way that you want your children to describe you one day. That's it.
Yep. And it just, what you know, I mean, I've been through it. I was the child of divorce. So I feel like, shouldn't we be talking sometimes to people who have actually been through it? Not all these, these people who say this is the way to do it. Like, I know the way to do it because I lived and I remember how to do it or how not to do it. I remembered
Exactly.
what my inner kid needed.
Exactly.
I was the kid I was like, why can't we build a floor on grandma's house and dad can live on the second floor and you could live on the first floor? And my parents just laughed their asses off at me because I literally thought, why not?
Yep.
Because no one was talking to me about it.
Yeah. And I suffered in silence. My parents' divorce lasted 10 years. Started when I was 8 and ended literally when I was graduating high school. I feel like that day is when it was over. And it was my entire existence. I was estranged from my father by the time I was 12. And I feel like so much of that could have been avoided had I been kept out of their issues. I was thrown right in the middle of them. For all the moms who say, well, my child deserves to know the truth. I knew the truth and it made me sick physically, mentally, emotionally, a sickness I can't undo now. It resulted in an eating disorder and self-harm and all sorts of shit because kids can't carry the weight of that truth. Doesn't matter if they're 16 or 12 or 9.
That to me is the mom's need for something over the child's need.
It's
The
ego.
justification, the pride, the ego, the need for confidence, but that's not a confident approach. A confident approach is, this is my shit and I'm not going to pile it on you because you're a
ego.
whole human being.
It's all ego. And unfortunately, I tell people all the time, this isn't a battle between good and evil. You're not good and your ex isn't evil. It's a battle between good and ego, right? So like you both have good, but your egos are at a 10 right now. And you're battling each other's egos. And what their ego is what's triggering their ego right now is not a representation of who they are as a person. You married them, you loved them, you made kids with them. Let's look past this point in time where they're allowed to be upset and they might act like an asshole in ways you don't approve of. But you know what? That's a small part of the big picture of your life with this person, which unfortunately has to continue if you have kids with them.
Yes.
Which you've been able to do beautifully. And I know more about details about your situation. I don't know what you share publicly, but you really made an effort to take the high road, even when you were in fear, even when you didn't want certain things for your kids. You really have always taken the high road, and you should be proud of that.
Hells yes. My divorce attorney, on the final day of the divorce, my ex came up and shook her hand and said, "Hey, thanks for everything and thanks for dealing with me." Right? And she just goes, "You have no idea. You are so lucky that this woman handled it." Right? And it was just this like moment, and we kind of all not laughed together because I don't want to lighten any of it. But it was just a moment of like, that was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And you're lucky that she just wanted so much to just finish it in a way that made me feel was my style, as opposed to the courts,
I also think though, your terrific knack for empathy and reading people was part of that, part of how you handled the process, because I think there was a part of you that knew that nothing your ex was throwing your way was personal. These were his own things, his own demons, his own shit. And you weren't going to react from your ego because you knew like, okay, this guy's struggling right now. Let's get past this part to a part where we can all just be with our kids and enjoy them.
I know. And it was scary. It was like, I never wanted to be mad. I never wanted to. I think I told you, and I've said it before, is I changed lawyers specifically because one was going for the pit bull approach. And my anxiety was so
I'm so
high.
glad you did that. There's nothing that ruins a child's life more than a contentious divorce battle.
That was the route she was taking because she
Hmm.
felt like that was the route that needed to happen. And I was like, this is not me.
Yep. I
I'm
changed
not a
lawyers.
fighter. I'm like a water. My coach in field hockey used to teach us, like, why would you want to bash into the other players? It's like water around rock, water around rock. And I'm like, sometimes
Yeah.
you got to take that route.
I changed lawyers early on because the one I had initially, I had called him with an issue one day. I said, because we didn't even have a temporary parenting plan at that point, and my ex showed up at the house to see my daughter, and I asked my attorney what I was supposed to do, and he told me to call the cops and file a restraining order, and I was
Oh
like,
God.
nothing happened. And then I was like, you know what? Like, give me
No,
my
it's very
retainer bag,
scary.
homeboy. Like, we are not going down this road. And then my next attorney was reasonably mild, but also did not educate me at all whatsoever on the parenting plan. And I just like signed a standard agreement without knowing I could change anything or add anything in.
Yeah.
And that's also a big
Well,
part of my work.
my lawyer was also my therapist in it, and I would tell people, don't use your lawyer as your therapist because
No,
it's
it's
going to cost you a
expensive.
hell of a lot of money.
Yeah. And then emotion breeds emotion, right? So if
Yeah.
you're coming to them sad about something
Oh
that happened,
no, I
then
used
they're
to
going to,
leave her 5-minute voice memos. You
but
know me, I'm like the voice memo queen.
But a bad attorney, it's like smelling blood in the water. They're going to take that emotion. They're going to ramp things up. They're going to say, okay, well, here's our plan of
Yeah.
attack. You don't need that sometimes. That's why
No.
you definitely need a therapist through the divorce
Yeah.
process.
Or a divorce coach
Yes.
who understands and coaches you on, I don't know what to do about a schedule. I have ADD. I don't have a schedule
Hmm.
normally. So, like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
And it's still a struggle. And, jump ahead to where we are now, thank God, is I don't remember the last time my ex and I said, hey, it's your weekend. Because every weekend our kids have freaking sports galore.
Right. It's
So I'm
their
like,
weekend.
who's bringing who where?
Yeah.
And I just can't believe we've gotten to that point where it's not a forced, they're staying with you and I have plans, or they're staying with you. And I can't even think back to
So
when the
you guys,
courts kind of mandated, right? And you feel like you're at the mercy of the courts to stick to that exact schedule.
right.
That was heartbreaking. That was heartbreaking to have my kids want to be somewhere and be forced to be somewhere else out of like pride and out of the legal practice.
What's fair for me?
Holy shit.
That's the
Awful.
parent mentality. No, that flexibility. I mean, people always ask me, I'm never going to be, they'll say, I'm never going to be amicable or friendly. I'm never going to be friendly. We're not going to be taking family photos. We're not going to be going for ice cream.
Yeah, we're not doing an Easter
Whenever I
photo.
whenever we go out of town, my ex and I and his girlfriend and my husband and Bella, people like go crazy in my DMs like, I could never. You don't have to do that to be a good
You don't have
co-parent, but
to.
you have to do the flexible thing. Have your parenting plan. Yes, if shit hits the fan, refer back to it, but if you can live a flexible life where your kids are keeping as close to a life as what it would have been had you guys stayed together, that to me is good co-parenting. You don't need to be friends.
Yes.
You don't need
Yes.
to be friends.
No, I
Um,
know. And people will say, oh, well, how are you ever going to meet someone else with it being so like, I don't really, that's not where I'm at right now. But we'll see when we get there.
We'll see when we get there.
We'll see when we get there. I'm exhausted already from decision fatigue.
Wait, are you like the Dunkin' Donuts spokeswoman now? What's going on with Dunkin'?
No, what do you
You run
mean?
you run on Dunkin'. I mean, you are like Dunkin'
No, I
lady.
mean, I'm going on, I have not signed a 2025 contract with them. So I'm a free agent right now
You hear
on the
that,
coffee
Dunkin'?
scene,
Yeah.
but we're working on what's coming next. They have a whole new social team. They're crushing it with their socials right now. And they partnered with me for 3 years in a row. And I'm the longest standing, literally, they said this on the call. I'm the longest standing Dunkin' influencer there's ever been.
Well, that's why I'm saying you are Dunkin'. Like
Yeah.
Dunkin' runs on you at this point.
Yeah. So fun fact, I MC their foundation gala and we raise over $1 million each year. And
Holy
I'm like the
shit.
Jenny McCarthy of
Oh
the
my
Dunkin'.
God.
Yeah. So a lot of
So
people don't know that side of me, but yeah, I do that.
let's just honor for a second what you've built in the face of a 5-year divorce battle. Like, I don't know how many followers you had when I met you, but I know now
Yeah.
the world knows Nicki and the world loves Nicki. And you've done that in spite of, you've made these connections in spite of. What would you say to somebody who is really trying to like make themselves better professionally, focus on work, and they've got all this divorce noise in the background.
This is 90% innately who I am. 90%, like born this way. Right? So if you ask my dad, how did Nicki get through this? He'd say she was the same exact way as a kid. So that's why athletics worked for me. That's why the things that I wanted, whether it was a job or a promotion or anything that was success related, right? There was a saying, success leaves clues, right? So if somebody's got all these successes, that leaves clues about who they are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a drive that I have. I'm crazy hard on myself, but not in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
I just am like, figure your shit out. But that's being an athlete. I was raised by some of like the best coaches.
That's
You know, my
amazing.
childhood coaches, my childhood teams that I played on, the athletes that I played with, like I've taken snippets of all of those people along the way. And that's how I function.
Well, it's incredible. And, I know that there are probably more people than you can handle reaching out to you for support and guidance through their own divorces. How do you manage that? Being that, like, that's not necessarily your wheelhouse, but you are so good at being the co-parent that you are.
Yeah. Usually I tell people, hey, I'm not an expert in this, but the best advice I could give you is to listen to yourself. Like there's so much noise when you're going through a divorce. And I'm talking noise not only from your attorney or your mediator or your friend who went through it or your mom or like everybody wants you to do things a certain way. And one of my best friends was like the best advocate for me, but also she was so like, this is the way, this is what's best, this is going to work best. And at the end of the day, I listened and I tried, but then I was like, I'm like, this isn't for me. This
No, people don't
schedule.
realize advice is selfish. It is coming,
Yeah.
and not selfish in the sense that I only care about me. I am giving you my experience and I'm expecting you to apply it to yours. And it's not coming from a place of, I have plenty of people in my world who are not clients, like
Yeah.
acquaintances, friends who come to me in distress about their marriages for months and months, and then they're good again, and then they're bad again, and I
Yeah.
always say to them, you don't owe me, like, you are not obligated to leave just because you're telling me about your problems. You're not obligated to stay just because you tell me about your problems. You are obligated to yourself. And there's nothing I could tell you right now that you should do. You got to do what feels right for you. And when clients come to me with, I'm not divorced yet, I haven't filed, I'm still trying to figure out if I want to go, I say, come back to me when you've made that decision, because I am not ever going to have that blood on my hands where I'm telling you, yes, that happened to me too, and I left, so you should leave.
Yeah.
No way.
Never. I'm an advocate for a happy marriage. I'm an advocate for marriage working.
Same.
So I'm not this, you gotta leave. I have friends, not social media people, like real friends who will call me and they will want to either vent about their husband or something they're feeling with the invisible load. And the first thing I say is, if you come back to me next week and you tell me how wonderful he is, I will never judge you. I will never judge you for that. You're having a
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
And I completely get it.
Yes. My
and if you
friends
change
know.
your mind.
Yeah. I'm clearly, obviously, the person people are going to come to when they're having marital problems, right? And my friends know.
Yes.
I have a very small, tight-knit group of friends. They're my best friends, and their husbands are my friends. Like, I love them. And I always say, I'm going to love him separate and apart from this. Your marital problems are separate from our dynamic as friends, just like your marital problems, your divorce problems are completely separate from your role as being a parent. And this is what I try and get people to see. So, I think autonomy is so important in the decision to divorce, and not feeling like you owe somebody the next step because they've given you that advice like that. It gets really messy. It gets really muddy.
What do you think? I want to ask you something. What do you think is the biggest thing that's coming up for families today?
I think, don't forget, I'm an educator by trade, and I am also studying to be a marriage and family therapist. I think the biggest thing that comes up for people in marriages, don't forget, the majority of people that come to me are not older. They are, early to mid 30s with kids under 5 who are now seeing the traits in their partner that scare the shit out of them. What brings that out of them? Parenting. All of your inner child stuff comes out when you become a parent.
Yes.
So maybe let's say you're married to somebody who was abused in their childhood. All of their issues and wounds are triggered when they become parents, and it comes out sideways. So the biggest issue I see is a lack of self-awareness on the individual part and a lack of acceptance on the partner's part. So now if this person hurts us, well, they're a narcissist, obviously, and I can't be married to a narcissist. And this account said that they're a covert narc, and that, whatever that means. Right. And so we're over labeling and we're over generalizing, and we're not looking at the full picture, right? So like, my dad cheated on my mom and cheated and cheated and cheated and had women everywhere and probably still does. But if we look at the whole picture, and I'm not saying what he did was okay, right? You can go through trauma and then it's your job to go be a good person in spite of it. He was given up for adoption, abandoned, abused, like all sorts of terrible things that would naturally lead him to have these sorts of personality disordered traits that were going to lead to these bad behaviors. So if we look at the full picture, we can say this is not a me thing. This is something they're dealing with. If they're behaving this way towards me because they're out of work right now, we have to look at why. They're not an abusive asshole. They're an emasculated asshole right now because they lost their job and they're scared, right? So what we do is we take the behavior, we analyze it, we give it a name, and we discard people. I see it all the time. And that's the biggest issue, to answer this in a succinct way, is a lack of self-awareness on our own part and a lack of acceptance on the part of our partners.
So am I saying it somewhat right in this example is like women feeling like the weight of the world is on their shoulders with the invisible labor, another label, right? Invisible labor, mental load, doing all of the things, and him feeling emasculated when she's just like, what are you fucking doing?
The majority of people who come to me say that when we had children, our entire dynamic changed.
Yeah.
And again, it's because becoming a parent brings up very different things for a woman than it does for a man, if we're talking about a heterosexual couple. And women jump into like maternal mode, and like the baby is biologically wired to them. They just came out of their body. They're on their boob. And so the man takes a step back because it's very much like, I don't know where I fit in here. And then we silently carry this resentment of like, oh, I'll just do it. You never just do it.
That should be my middle name. If you look at my marriage, I'll just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, there's two types of people. There are people who will say, I'm so grateful my partner gives me this time to connect and be and do all the things with the child. And then there's the one who says, oh, my husband never gets his ass up off the couch. And I'm like, but why? Do you just jump into action? Or are you saying these are the things that I think would be really helpful for you to jump in with, So these are the things that silently tear people apart. A man is going to say she changed when we had kids. The woman's going to say he never grew up. I thought he'd grow up when we had kids. And this is what happened.
Nailed it.
If there was self-awareness on the woman's part of, I did change and I changed for the better, and here's how it is, but here's how I know it's affecting my partner, then, and the man also needs to have the self-awareness to say, okay, I'm not what she is right now, and that's okay. We got to find a way to make it work anyway.
And I have so many amazing men in my life. So I want to emphasize that. I feel like we have these conversations where the woman's handling all the mental load and the woman's handling. I have seen complete opposite. I've seen complete opposite where the woman wants her social life to continue, and there was this expectation from the man that like we're gonna be home with the kids. So I've seen both sides, and it's just hard. The compatibility factor once you have kids.
But no one talks about this on first dates. And this is why, like, I don't believe in getting married young, because if I got married at 20, I would have been divorced 3 times before 30. Like, I was a disaster. I was a disaster at 31 when I got married for the first time. But what are your values, right? Like, I don't care if you're good on paper. Good on paper means shit. I can wipe my ass with it if we are not aligned in our values. Like, what type of home do you want to have? Like, are you a Sunday dinner guy? Do
Right.
you want to have the in-laws over for every celebration? Are we going out and having separate friends nights, or are we going to have game nights with all of our couples? Like, what life do you want to live? Nobody
I
talks
mean,
about this.
I'll say it the way I see a lot of it, right? In me in particular, I see my scenario so much, and maybe it's my algorithm, but there is still so much like opposition between two sexes.
Oh yeah.
So, right, we're in this world of like, we've been told to like lean in, climb the corporate ladder, do the thing, right? And then our maternal instincts. So, I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was the breadwinner at the time of having our first child. And the resentment came from, how am I doing all of this at work and everywhere else? And then also doing all of this at
But
home.
that's a choice. So like I am very much a hustler.
Yeah.
I work from home, but when I tell you I'm working all day, I've got 3 different branches of my business. I've got the educational component that I've developed. But it is a priority to me that both my girls, my stepdaughter and my daughter, come home and there's food, and my
Yep.
husband comes home and I've had like I don't think it has to be one or the other. And people push themselves towards these labels of I'm a career woman or I'm a housewife. Like, you can be both. Sure, you can't do all of the things all the time, but that
Right, but
again,
I'm talking more about the man's role in that, because that type of woman tends to feel like, what the fuck, man?
yeah,
I'm like, what do you, hello?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then
I agree. I agree.
the
Yeah,
resentment builds up, and then you feel like you have, I think, what did they say? Like, to be in your feminine power. Holy shit. I haven't been in my feminine power in so long. Like, but then the guilt of not being able to do it. So we say, I'll just do it because we feel like we're supposed to be able to.
right.
So it's
Right.
more that it's less about him making, nobody made me do anything, but I put a lot on myself thinking I was supposed to be able to do all these
But
things.
that's why these conversations are so important. And codependency in our relationships prevent the conversations, right? Because
Yeah.
you're like, I don't want to say anything. I don't want to rock the
Yeah.
boat. I'm just going to suck it up and do it. But that sucking it up turns into resentment, which is essentially poison. It
Once
is the
resentment,
silent,
yeah.
yeah, it's a
Resentment
silent
is,
killer in any relationship.
yep.
Um, but for me, it's interesting because I'm with my second husband now, 8 years. I have never been more in my feminine power. Like,
Girl, sexy motherfucker. I have TikTok live still going. They're
hi,
listening to our
it's your
whole thing.
sexy motherfucker here. No, it's not even that. It's more of like, I'm finally at 41 years old. I can confidently say I know who I am. I feel confident in doing the work that I do. I feel like a great mother and stepmother. I
Yeah.
know that, if nothing more.
Yeah.
And I show up as fuck for my husband, but from the lens of self-compassion, as in, I'm not cooking tonight. I've had the day from hell. We've got a freezer full of Trader Joe's, or
Yeah.
let me know if you want me to order something. Like,
Yeah.
I set those
Yeah.
boundaries because when we don't tell people what to expect from us, that's where
Yeah.
expectations are the root of all heartache. If my husband was coming home expecting dinner and I'm like getting a massage in my bedroom because I just can't take another minute of this life, then yeah, he's bound to feel resentment, as he should. So like, setting those expectations and boundaries with people it sounds so cliche, boundaries, but it has changed my life. I was a
Yeah.
boundaryless human for very long.
Yes. And now I have them up, but in some areas, like so much so that I'll have to get back to you when I need to break them down a little. Cause I am just, it's like, it's a little bit of the martyr thing. It's like me and the kids, me and the two kids, me
But
and the
it's
two
what
kids.
feels good for you right now,
It
Nikki.
is. What is it? Like the Diane Keaton, the movies where you see like the Diane Keatons and the, who am I thinking? The Meryl Streeps, where
Yeah.
they're just like living their midlife, like
And
going
you know
for their
what?
croissant and coffee, and their children are growing up, and like that's the era I'm in.
Newsflash. I mean, like I said, there's an 18-year-old in my home who by 13 needed nothing from us. So it's like, this time is fleeting. And if you're giving it all to your kids, what a gift for both of you.
I
Right.
agree. I agree. But when I do need to eventually let somebody in. It's just I'm not there right now, and that's
And
okay.
you have to honor
And
that. And
that's
when you
okay.
force it,
Yeah.
when you force a fart, what does it turn into?
Shit.
Exactly.
A big Stinky
A
shit.
big stinky poo. Anyway, I so appreciate you.
Course of
So what do you
sorrow.
have going on now, like business wise? You're just like,
I am feeling a change. I'm feeling a change and I'm following it where, it's like I've been doing the short form content for 4 years, right? And I love it and I will always do it, but I don't want to feel like that I'm tied to that.
mm,
So, podcast, I did a season 1. I still have season 1 kind of going on. And then season 2 or whatever I'm feeling a rebrand of some sort where season 1 is like preseason.
right,
Like I'm practicing my dribbling and
right. Now
now it's
you're
like
going to
the
get
big
into the
game. And
meat
I'm
and
like, so I
potatoes.
want podcasts. I want to eventually, I'm saying this for the first time out loud, tour, but I'm not talking little tiny because I don't want to be away from my kids. Little tiny, not on a flight away from my kids tour. So like Massachusetts, New York, building like a show out of some sort.
Love it.
And then like I really love vlogging. I really love long form YouTube. I just haven't figured out the knack for it. So
Same.
I
I love it too. And I
love
just
it.
don't know how to
I
get
love
there.
doing it. I love doing a day in the it's like my high school self was always on my grandparents' camcorder. And I would record the day in the lives before they were even called that. I would bring it everywhere and I'd vlog my friends and our sleepovers and in school. And I just feel like little young Nikki doing that. And I love it. I love sharing like
And it
what a
clearly
real day
brings
in the
you
life
so much
looks like.
joy. Your face
Yeah,
is
it's
lighting up right
fun.
now.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
fun.
allows you the freedom to be the mom you want to be
I don't know
also.
who the hell wants to watch that, but like
I
I
do.
want to have it as a memory too,
For sure.
without
For
being a
sure.
family vlogger.
It's
Just
incredible. Listen, we live in a voyeuristic society and
yeah,
people really value a look into other people's
yeah,
spaces, whether it makes them feel good or makes
yeah,
them feel
yeah.
or just passes the time for them. But this is what we're interested in. This is why reality TV has been such a hit. So I have no doubt you're going to make all these dreams come true. I'll be here rooting for you on the
Thank
sidelines,
you.
hopefully in Nantucket celebrating
Yes, Nantucket.
success.
Amazing. Oh, you're the best. It's so
You
easy
are.
to talk
Thank you
to you.
so much for this conversation. And if
Thank you.
everyone's not already following you, which would just be plain stupid, where can they find you?
Oh gosh, Nicki Marie Inc. is pretty much anywhere, or Nicki Unplugged. Just look at, you can put it in your search engine and I will unfortunately pop up everywhere.
Or at your nearest Dunkin'
Yeah,
Donut.
right? Or yeah.
All right. Thank
We
you.
gotta re-sign the contract. Duncan, come on. Knock knock.
What did I want? I had one more thing to say. Oh, our membership community. Ladies and gentlemen, ladies, if you haven't joined yet, this is where you're getting the one-on-one advice from me that you have loved in my Instagram post for so long. It's all in the community now. It's an opportunity to work with me one-on-one, chat with me one-on-one, have advice from experts, and really meet other like-minded co-parents. We have it available for a very low price right now. We slashed the price in half through the month of February. So I would jump on that if I were you. MichelleDempsey.com/community. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next time on the Moving On Method.
Love you.
Love you.